Hey everyone, and welcome to Penalty Box Radio's GNASH season wrap-up show. I'm Abigail Martin, alongside via Zoom, of course, with Derek Hawks today, ready to give you all your GNASH wrap-up going back to the regular season. And of course, I think we have to talk about the championship game coming up, right?
Absolutely. We've got one in the bag, one upcoming. It's always playoff season in our hearts.
Absolutely. Derek, first of all, how are you doing today?
You know, cold outside, but staying warm in here. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit trapped in. Really hoping to goodness that I can make at least a little Kroger run or something. But hey, as long as I get to have some hockey here in the next few weeks, I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to the final game of this Predators Cup championship for sure.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to touch on that, going from a game one push to a game two by Brentwood, But let's go back to a regular season. Overall, I mean, we had to get here somehow, right? What is the biggest outcome that you saw from the regular season that has now led us to this point?
Well, I've been really impressed by the level of play that ramped up in the playoffs. I think we saw some really, really great players throughout the regular season, but there are quite a few players that in the playoffs, their performances have stood out. They've stepped up the challenge. You look at their point totals that they had in the regular season, a lot of them really significant point totals, but then they're ramping up to 1+, sometimes 2 points per game in the playoffs here. So it's really been outstanding to watch. And the two-way play from some of these D-men in particular, pretty outstanding stuff. I think the future of hockey in Tennessee is in good hands.
Absolutely. And one thing I can specifically say from the regular season pushing forward was the improvement of some of these teams. I want to touch on my opinion in just a second, but I have to know, what is the biggest improvement you have seen from either a significant player? If I could talk, that'd be so nice. I'm gonna rewind. Before I tap into my opinion, I do want to go back to improvements, because of course improvement is going to lead your team, whether it be from a player standpoint or from a team standpoint. So who do you think has had the most improvement, either team-wise or player-wise, or both?
Well, I think watching Indy Spring Hill this season was particularly fun. And you're talking about a team that just won the Heinz Cup. I think that they were strong in the regular season in flashes, but the all-around game that they put together to beat Father Ryan and a really good Father Ryan team in the final Cup game, I think it was some really impressive play all around.
Absolutely. Going back, of course, we've had Brady Palmer be able to call some games for us here on Penalty Box Radio, which is absolutely phenomenal. It was so cool being able to see, him tap into the commentating side, and, he's commentating for his kid. And that was incredible to see as well. But I think the team for the most improvement for me that I've seen was Mount Juliet Greenhill in Lebanon. And I mean, even seeing Palmer and Settle as well. Of course, I'm going to show some bias. I'm going to go ahead and let y'all know right now about some tidbit. I know Derek and I had talked about this before one of the games, but Settle is actually the younger brother of an MTSU player, which is Corey Settle. And then Palmer, man, does he know how to control the puck or what?
Yeah.
And I feel like we saw glimpses of it during the regular season, but as they started to push forward through the playoffs, we really saw him thrive. And even in the third period when they're down, you did not see that lack of energy from him. He was the one that was going towards the puck, and Settle is absolutely no different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially watching Palmer, the size of his strides and the way that he can just fly through the neutral zone is pretty special, but he can also travel in the neutral zone. I think that segues nicely into a little segment that I've prepared today. I have some highlight players from throughout this playoff tournament, and the two from Mount Juliet that you've named are actually the two that I have on my sheet. And I will preface this by saying I'm no NHL scout. I just happen to be a Stars fan here living in Nashville. But I have some NHL equivalents, if you will, of their style of play. And I love to start with Robert Settle. Man, can he move? Just the rocket skates on him. I have as my NHL equivalent Patrick Kane. He can go off at any moment. Lots of deke and wrist moves at the front of his mind. And when they work, they really, really work. But Lyndon Palmer, as well, as we mentioned, one of the more complete 200-foot players, poised through the neutral zone on either side, especially offensively, is unreal. I have Shane Gostisbehere as his NHL equivalent.
And you mentioned Independent Spring Hill. Do you have any NHL equivalences for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first one that stands out, obviously, is Braden McCandless. I have Oliver Ekman-Larson for him, can transition from defense to offense just lightning quick, uses his size brilliantly, makes a really, really solid first pass from a bunch of different spots on the ice, very soft hands. I think it's worth mentioning 7 points in 5 games on D. I was really impressed by that. I have 4 players throughout the entire tournament that really stood out as the most fun to watch. And fresh off of an all-star snub, I couldn't believe it, but Ryan Lawson for Indy Spring Hill. I have perhaps my favorite, the young goat, Miro Heiskanen, special player. Fast, not blazingly so, but sees the game a full paces ahead. Uses his stick to control and stop momentum like no one else did in this tournament. He can take it all the way up the ice, put a dangerous shot on from just over the line or just beneath the circle. Really, really one of my favorite players to watch this entire tournament. Additionally, Camden Rummo, who ended up putting that series away for them. Elias Pettersson is my NHL rep for him. Complete offensive package, can score just as easily as he spits apples, and he can spit some apples. Solid speed, skates very, very well. Really commendable hand-eye coordination, and was just 1 point shy of a 2 point per game pace in the playoffs. I think you also have to rep his MVP co-honoree from that series, Grant Williams, the goalie for Indy Spring Hill, an all-star starter for GNASH here as we have that all-star game coming up sometime when the weather decides to settle. He faced an unbelievable number of shots in that final game, but keeps his head on really well, moves with intention, positions well, and a great glove for Indy.
I can't agree with you more on Grant Williams. You were calling that game, and I remember just sitting there, and I would look at you every once in a while like, did he really just do that? And I feel like a lot of parents were absolutely shocked, and it was amazing to see the support that he had from both his teammates and from the crowd that was in the stands. But you're right, absolutely phenomenal player and goaltender as well. Probably, would you say he would be one of the best goaltenders that is in this GNASH league right now?
I think the best goaltender performance I saw the entire season was the one that he put up in that final game. I think he faced like 52 shots or something
It was a
crazy
lot.
in that game that went almost all the way through overtime before Rummo closes it. And yeah, like I said, the two of them certainly deserve those co-MVP honors. But I have to say, even though it doesn't show up on the point sheet, Ryan Lawson was just as much a reason that they won that game, that series, and the cup with his two-way play. Not especially flashy, but the poison, just the little poke checks, just like you see Miro do in the show. It's unreal how he kept the waves of offense away that he was facing in that game.
Absolutely. And now we're going to skip forward a little bit. Game 1 of the Preds Cup Championship. What a game. Brentwood, before the game, we had talked about a ton, but if Brentwood wins, then they push to a game 2, which they did, and they would fight for a four-peat of winning the Preds Cup. Whereas NBA, undefeated on the season, they would become the state champions if they did win that game 1. What a battle that was. I don't even know any other words to describe it other than that. What was the biggest standout point for you in that game?
Well, I think like I had talked about before, I was curious to see that this was only Montgomery Bell's 3rd game in the tournament. And so fresh legs, were they going to have tired minds? Would they be a step behind? And they started out very strong in that game, had a bunch of the offensive pressure. But ultimately, Brentwood, the passing, the skating, they were able to move the puck really, really well. And they walked away with it and stayed away a nice comeback opportunity that came really on the stick of Luke Haley, the captain for Montgomery Bell. But you just have scoring in waves coming from Brentwood. You've got several players that really stand out, including another one of my favorites to watch in this tournament, Stephen Lipa Jr., the D-man. My goodness, his speed is unreal. He might have the best vision I saw offensively in the entire tournament. He can get from zone to zone before people realize what's happening. Excellent shot, elite a passer across his own blue line, a very fine shooter to boot. Truly one of the best passers in the tournament. Shades of Cale Makar for me on Stephen Lipa Jr. But you also have some serious offensive help by way of, I think, namely Ethan Postisi, who looks a little bit like Anze Kopitar out there. Low center of gravity, can move people off the puck at either end. Excellent confidence from anywhere within 40 feet of the net. Ben Byron, obviously, with two goals, in that first game. I have David Pasternak for him. Excellent nose for the net, gets in the right places to take shots from the circle, but really unafraid to shoot from distance on off angles, which we saw him do, and score from that right circle. He really knows how to put it in the back of the net. And then I know one of your favorite players to watch, Abigail, Cal Estamonker. Looks like Mark Stone to me. Neutral zone nightmare for defenses. Really excellent two-way play, but you get nervous if you're a defender and he comes into the offensive zone with speed. Very clean shooter with nice wrists.
Absolutely. And one thing that Brentwood has always amazed me with is their hockey IQ. I feel like they know exactly what's going to happen before it even happens, whether it be from their own team chemistry. And that's a lot what it speaks onto is their team chemistry, but they know exactly the next move that you're going to make before you do it. You want to try and throw a saucer pass down to the slot? Absolutely not. There are probably two defensemen right there sitting in the middle, ready to take that from you, setting it up for a breakaway, and hey, maybe even sending it to Cal Estamonker, right?
Absolutely. And I think we saw the breakaway pass from Lipa to Byron, I believe on Byron's first goal. Unreal. But you just mentioned defense in the slot. Lipa's ready for it any time. In addition, the shot blocking that he had. I remember there was one play in that first game where there was a shot coming up from the point and he just lifted his boot straight up into the air to just keep the shot from going off. Didn't move anything else on his body but one ankle to send that away. I think he also had a really strong play to help close out from Devin Phillips, their goalie. Looks to me a little bit like Marc-Andre Fleury out there. He's unreal when the play collapses in those instances that it does, because I think the Big Red in particular were trying to crash a bunch of bodies onto the net, see if they could get a dirty one to go in, get those kind of playoff goals to try and get that comeback going. But he can kick his leg out really quickly. Glove remains in the air even as chaos ensues around him, and moves to dive and swallow the puck pretty instinctively. He was strong, and I think a big reason why Brentwood forced this series to a game too.
Absolutely. On top of the hockey IQ, the chemistry, everything aside from that, the depth that they have in this team is astronomical, honestly.
Absolutely.
And I know there was a game that Jonah Story and I were at, and it was a 5-on-3 penalty kill, and you could have never told the difference if Brentwood was on the power play or not. They are that demanding. They are that controlling of the puck. Yes, Cal Estamonker is undoubtedly one of my favorite players to watch in this GNASH league. He's actually also a really genuine, nice guy. Was able to interview him pre-COVID, of course, but he just has like the softest, sweetest soul. And then you see him go out on the ice. He's everywhere, all at one time. He's not afraid to hit. He's not afraid to take a hit. And he's most undoubtedly not afraid to go in front of that net. And the confidence, I feel it from him sometimes. And, we're so far up on the bench and we feel it. I'll get goosebumps sometimes. It is ridiculous that the power, the strength that he has, the length in his shot. And Byron, he plays so well on defense, and he's also leading in points right now with 13 points, up right above Cal Estamonker with 11. And you mentioned Stuzy with 10 points right now in the tournament. And during that game, we saw a lot of hard hits as well, which is something I did mention. That is, staying disciplined. And Brentwood can hold on to their own while they're on the penalty kill, that makes it very dangerous for the Big Red with NBA as they head into game 2. Hopefully soon. Fingers crossed we'll pull into next week. But it's every little aspect of this game 2 is so important. There is not a single thing that you can leave out. And that goes even down to shift changes. I remember they were taking too long on the shift change. I'm not sure what was going on, lack of communication, I am sure, but left the entire left wing open and left for a good chance of a goal.
Yeah.
And going back to Devin Phillips, there's always someone in front of the net for him, for Brentwood, ready to block a shot, but they're able to do it in a way that doesn't block and do anything to his vision. But they don't want you ever sneaking in front door on Devin Phillips, but he can handle it. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the ways that Lipa plays pretty well in particular. He's not a particularly large defenseman, but he stays out of the way of Phillips and, allows him to see those shots on and knows when he can block the shot and does it well without causing too much trouble and, strange bounces that might make it into the lap of Phillips. But I have to commend Matt Thayer played pretty well for Montgomery Bell in flashes. In some ways, he reminds me of Stars goaltender Anton Khudobin. He doesn't naturally cover a ton of the net, especially as compared to Phillips, but he stays pretty low. He keeps his head agile. His lateral motion is pretty quick in some instances, again, because of the size, because it seems like it has to be, but very strong with the pads, really excellent action with the toes when they're scrappy, fast play down low, looks just like Dobby. But one of the reasons that NBA even had a shot at making that comeback is because those pads for Thayer were consistently very good late when they had to be. But speaking of that comeback attempt, a hat trick by Luke Haley, the captain, who gives me shades of, oh, captain, my captain.
Oh my goodness.
Jamie Benn even shares the number. Captain material all over him, refuses to let the game get past his team, uses his size to his advantage, not especially fast, but sees the play very well, really knows how to run a give and go. I think it was his second goal that he potted in that game was just a classic give and go, sent it back into the corner, picks it up, snapshot before Phillips could even see it, is totally willing to get into the filthy areas down in front, has a surprisingly snappy release. I think another one to watch for Montgomery Bell in this final game. Cooper Green, the defenseman, looks like Seth Jones, can really move with some speed, nice big strides, obviously a two-way mold, likes to pick the spots of his shots, I think is pretty selective there, but can influence the game from anywhere out on the ice. I think they're a leading defender to watch in the final game.
Absolutely. And going back to Luke Haley, I remember interviewing him a few years ago. I think I was telling Justin Bradford this. It made me feel so old, and they're not that much younger than I am. But being able to watch Luke Haley grow over the years and go into that captain spot, I mean, you hit it spot on, captain material, absolutely. And did he lead his team the other night or what in game one with the hat trick? I know that was one of your favorite things to call, is being able to say, oh yeah, I got the hat trick in a game one. And that's a great way to lead. I'm a firm believer of you can be a leader in different ways when you're playing a sport. You can be that vocal leader, or you can also be the leader that you lead by example, quite literally on the scoreboard, or make sure you're setting things up. And did he take things into his own hands?
Absolutely.
Wow, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, his offensive poise was so commendable. I think the one thing to watch too is if he can stay out of the box, because he certainly spent more time there than I think he would have liked. And it reminded me of, Father Ryan had some trouble in the box in that final game. And I think that's part of the reason that Indy was able to pull it out, even though generally they looked like the more dominant team, in stretches. Father Ryan looked really great, and they had some excellent skaters. In particular, Daniel Albanese looks a little like Brad Marchand, sometimes can get himself in a bit trouble with his inarguably committed two-way play, if we like to call it that, but he had great offensive vision and timing, was a threat on either end of the ice. And then I think in particular, if you talk about Father Ryan, you've got to mention Ryan Prim. Game-breaking acceleration, could split the D, excellent hands, all-around offensive touch. I think he would get more assists if there were more offensive weapons around him, but he was 5-4 in 6 games. And I'm going to go local for this.
Do not tell me you have another jersey.
Well, you'll like this one, Gail. There you go. Looks a little bit to me like Victor Arvidsson. Just really nice offensive weapon, can turn on this, the Rockets, 2 or 3 strides. He hits quick pace pretty quickly. He can get there fast. But again, Father Ryan, time in the box ended up, I think, biting them some in that series, and something to watch for Montgomery Bell, who also struggled in spurts there.
Absolutely. And going back to earlier, when I was talking about Brentwood being able, if you can handle yourself well on a penalty kill, I can't believe the things that you're going to be able to do on a power play. And that's something that you don't want to give up, especially going into game 2. This is all or nothing, quite literally. Whoever is the winner of this game comes out with the Preds Cup, whether that be a 4-peat on the side of Brentwood, or whether that be NBA, who, I think I said earlier that they were undefeated, but undefeated in the regular season, and then winning it all. I mean, because I think both of these teams are coming with such a fire under their belt for multiple of different reasons. So it, like I said earlier, it's honestly going to come down to every single little aspect that you can think of means so much in this game 2 game. And I do want to take a step back and go back to game 1. We were talking about Devin Phillips and the play from him, as well as that there. But we actually had a Brentwood parent come up to us after game 1.
That's right.
It was Devin Phillips' mom. And the most shocking news that she tell us, oh boy, y'all are going to love this one. So he had a contact fall out. And it's, of course, prescription based. I feel like I'm blind if I don't have my contacts in, but I would never even think about playing. He had a phenomenal game, but he played in glasses. not like sports glasses or anything, like typical ordinary glasses. And that's just a little fun fact that, if you're able to do that, and we asked her, we like, are these contacts can come in time? She's like, oh girl, of course they will be in here by at least Wednesday. And now, I mean, hey, maybe you'll get a little extra time to get those contacts in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she had mentioned it was the first game that he had played in glasses in 5 or 6 years, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken. So you're talking middle school age, the last time that he played one of those games, and walked out with a do or die win to force this to a winner take all game, which was so much fun to call that second game with the Hind Cup. It's going to be a lot of fun to do this with the Predators Cup. Nothing like winner take all. I just hope we get overtime again, because that's pretty special way for things to go out.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw some extra hockey, and what a way to end off the season before we head into the All-Star game. But one thing about game 2 as well is going to be the environment that they're in. I think Derek and I, we were talking about, it feels so crazy, and just, I can't really put the words to it anymore, but having that environment, having that fan culture in the rink gave me goosebumps. And so being able to be in that environment, and especially we saw it in game 1 when it potentially is a do or die, but now moving into a second game, cool. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, it's pretty special to get that playoff atmosphere. And I think the Ford has taken a page out of Bridgestone's book, and they've got that low ceiling, and it doesn't take many people to get that place feeling like it's rocking.
Absolutely. And with Montgomery Bell Academy, what is the biggest, is there a certain game is there a certain game from NBA from game 1 that they especially need to improve on? Not just discipline, but rather wanting to see a player that has the capability to step up in the role. Of course, other than Luke Haley.
Yeah, I think Cooper Green was finding a really nice groove, getting involved as the game progressed. I think that you see too from, on the other side, the play from Lipa going to Byron, opportunities from Lipa going, to his other forwards, to Pastisi. I think you need that full offensive zone involvement. And I think Cooper Green's a particularly special player, skates it really well. If he can just force some plays for himself, get involved, and just, find a couple other wingers to get involved in the game, that's going to be their best offensive chance, because it can't all be the captain again, dependably, especially if they've got issues with the box, like you said.
Dependably, absolutely. And Cooper Green has 2 goals, 2 assists, leaving him with 4 points just in the tournament. So he's still showing up on the scoreboard, but of course, seeing improvement all around. And just Luke Haley. Luke Haley is such a standout player for NBA. They have the size with William Myers, absolutely, and he is not afraid to lay some hits down and sacrifice his own body to make sure that you have that loose puck that can potentially go to NBA side, lead you to a breakaway, or set up some 3-on-2, set up some advantage for you. That did get him in a little bit of trouble, however. So that's something to make sure that you're staying disciplined. If you're NBA's head coach, and I don't want to say you're in the locker room with them, but if you're able to send out a pregame text, or you're able to meet outside pregame, what is the message to the NBA team to make sure that they have their heads on straight, that they can bounce back from game 1 and hopefully come out with this Preds Cup victory in game 2?
I think they've got to get the passing going early. I think that they looked like they were skating well straight out of the gate. But again, you talk about that depth that the Bruins have for Brentwood, and especially on defense, they are hard to penetrate. And Phillips played very well. So I think you've got to get that passing going early, get your head up, make the smart passes, but stretch the play out responsibly so that you can get those defenders moving side to side, catch Phillips moving side to side, and try and get something going early, because Brentwood adjusted very, very well. And again, they just have that depth that very few teams in this tournament have.
Absolutely. And if you're Coach Oram on Brentwood's side, what is your message to your team?
Don't change too much. Cover Haley, cover Green. Try and, put shots on from a variety of different angles. See if you can screen Thayer. Again, Thayer not a particularly sizey goalie, if you will. He can't cover that much of the net naturally. So if you can spread the puck out, move laterally, get Lipa going on from the point, get Pastisi rushing the net well, I think you're going to continue to create a lot of offensive opportunities for your guys. And Byron can shoot it from anywhere, so he just needs to keep shooting.
Absolutely. The depth on Brentwood's side is absolutely amazing. NBA fighting through us, hold their ground throughout the regular season, pushing forward in the tournament. So game 2 of this Preds Cup is going to be a fun one. But we're not done with hockey right after that, even if we do see some overtime hockey, as I think we're both expecting as the game will push into. We have the All-Star game coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to be, who's your favorite player so far, if you've had a chance to look through the roster that you're ready to see?
I think I got to go with Lipa again. It's just so much fun to watch him play. He can make a play from really anywhere on the ice, which I think is special. I think also, Estamonker, like we mentioned, Grant Williams, the starting goalie for the Flyers team, Flyers and the Knights. Lyndon Palmer, a starter for the Knights. We've got a bunch of really good players. One that I think is also worth mentioning that I enjoyed watch play this season for Hendersonville, Slava Yarger. I think is a fun D-man to watch. Can do things on from just about any spot on the ice. Can use the body well. Can move the puck well. So another defenseman that is versatile. I think those are the kinds of standout D-men that I've enjoyed covering this tournament. Another fun one to watch.
Yarger is another younger brother of an MTSU player, Alexander Yarger. And it's just so funny. I remember when I watched the Settle for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, is that Corey out there? It takes you back the similarities between the two brothers that they have just throughout their skating, throughout their play style as well. Mm-hmm. So if you're missing some college hockey, those are some players to watch for, of course, during this All-Star tournament. Get you a little glimpse of the true blue team. But this, like as you were saying with the All-Star roster, there's so much depth on both sides from the players from the Flyers and from the Knights as well. It's gonna be another fun one. I think it's pretty evenly matched up, and I don't know. I can't really set an expectation for this game other than let's end some GNASH hockey for this season. It's been a wild one, a lot of postponements, a lot of cancellations, a big fun ride that you had to just stay on your toes for. So this All-Star game, it's going to be a good way to go out. I'm so happy that these GNASH players were able to get a season in. Of course, it's not ideal for, as I mentioned, the cancellations, postponements, but that these high school athletes, student athletes are able to go out there, do what they love. And we saw a lot of glimpses of them having so much fun. I know we talked about Sally's was such a big thing. Mm-hmm. And, being able to watch them do that again is amazing. And, I'm so glad that GNASH was able to put it in together, and Penalty Box Radio, we were able to broadcast it all so everybody can watch.
Absolutely. Commendations to these young athletes, to the coaches and to their staff for making this season happen. It takes a lot of adaptability and flexibility, and it's been a pleasure to watch and to cover.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in the Penalty Box Radio GNASH wrap-up show. And we're going to keep you tuned in for whenever we're going to have Game 2 Preds Cup hockey, as well as when we have the All-Star game set out. Again, thank you so much. I'm Abigail Martin with Derek Cox on Penalty Box Radio.